How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another karting video. Today we are at PF International Circuit for round one of the British University's Karting Championship Intermediates Championship. Now, I don't normally compete in intermediates or into the zone. However, for this week, I was unable to take part in the mains championship, which is the Premier class and the Clubman class, the one that I normally compete in for Loughborough Uni, because it was the first week back of the semester, and I didn't feel like dropping behind by about 6 hours of lectures just after 2 days. So I figured it was better to do the intermediates, and it also gave me a chance to help out our newer drivers, our rookie drivers, with just getting up to speed in the BUKC. Otherwise, it would have been a lot of confusion for those drivers. Good to have someone a little bit more experienced around just to bounce questions off. So doing my bit for the club as well. And speaking of teammates, actually we've just been overtaken by one of our teammates, Jay, in the black suit, black helmet just in front of us, due to that little spinner that was on the bridge. We had nowhere to go, so we just had to avoid. You can see that the track conditions are very, very slippery. It was quite icy the morning that we got there to PF International. The previous afternoon and evening it had been raining quite a lot, so when we got there was actually quite a lot of black ice all over the circuit, but we were very, very fortunate to have a sunny day throughout, so that meant that the track did dry out eventually, and actually dried out throughout this session as well, as we're just going to go for a little move back on our teammate Jay. Just completing the first lap of practice. The format for this, same as it always is for intermediates. For those who don't know, it's a 10-minute practice, which has no bearing on the results, but just a good opportunity to get back into the swing of things, followed by a 10-minute qualifying session. So they just show the green flag and you go straight into qualifying, and then a 25-minute race, the grid order for which is determined obviously by qualifying. Now, I should give a special shout out to my teammate Dan, who actually went out in the session before me, and he gave me a few tips when we were just setting up the kart for this session. Well, not setting up the kart, but getting the transponder in place on that sort of stuff. He basically said that the track in the first sector was still quite damp, but especially after the second hairpin, once we get into the chicane, a dry line had actually started to form, which definitely was the case. Driver there just going a little bit deep, but you can just see that for that first lap especially, we were just taking it very, very calm, very easy, just to have a little idea of what the track conditions are going to be like. But even now, as we're coming towards just the second lap of the day that we've done so far, we're starting to sort of try and push the limits, especially in this final sector. I think thanks to Dan, I was one of the earliest drivers to work out just how dry it actually was in the final sector, apart from this last corner actually, which was still quite damp throughout this session. So the wet line still working well, trying to square off the corner as best as possible, get the exit down to down the main straight, which could carry a lot. And now we're going to go for quite a little risky 3-wide overtake here, all fuel wheels on the wet stuff on the inside, but managed to get that move done in the end. So yeah, practice, just using this as an opportunity to just figure out the full track conditions, so that when we go straight into qualifying we can hit the ground running. And you can see the importance here actually, as we just overtake this driver in the red and yellow helmet, how important it is to really get those exits squared off as best as possible, get the best possible exit. And we've got a little yellow flag here down into hairpin 1 for a spinner, but we're going to see this again actually with this driver in the red suit. You can see we take a bit more of a traditional wet line, and we're just able to get such a better drive out of that corner. And we're just about to go on to the last lap here in practice. Behind this gentleman, who I was actually talking to before the session, I was complimenting him on his matching suit and helmet, and his response to which was, yes, it better be nice, it was incredibly expensive. So I mean, I've had the same kit since I started racing 3.5 years ago, and it's still doing me well. Well, the suit's changed, but still got the suit for quite cheap. So let's see if our friend is a case of all the gear, no idea. But he is taking the wet line. However, we're going to go all the way over onto that concrete on the left hand side, which around this track and down the main straight, or the back straight here, is so important in getting that run down the hill. If you can get 2 wheels on that far left hand side and really push the kart off of it, it really helps set you up very, very nicely indeed. as we just jumped forward a couple corners, coming across this guy in the blue suit. So we haven't actually yet been overtaken in this session, so we knew the pace was going to be quite good, but he just dips a wheel onto the dry line. You can see actually the sun beating down on the circuit. It's very, very easy actually to see where the dry line is, but especially in this last corner, it was not last corner, the second half of the track, it was just one cart width wide for the majority of it. Green flag there showing the start of qualifying, however unable to overtake that driver because of we spotted the yellow flag down at turn 1 for that stricken cart. But the key thing here is to try and get the best possible, try to get the most amount of clean air. I mean, the goal going into this session was a top 5 at the very, very least. We actually ended up doing inters at this round last year as well, just by pure coincidence, and we ended up finishing P2 out of 36. However, that was in very, very wet conditions. So these conditions a little bit different, a little bit nicer. There was a yellow flag just down there at turn 1, but that went away as soon as we crossed the line, so that was ideal. And this lap in qualifying, we only actually got 2 clear laps during qualifying because the tricky conditions, quite a lot of people spinning off with the wet track, quite a lot of yellows coming out. So of the 7 laps in qualifying, there were only 2 clear ones. This was the second of the 2, and this was actually the fastest lap of the entire session, so that put us on pole for the race by a very, very healthy 9/10 of a second. So and in fact I think our other lap was good enough for the front row as well, so we definitely had the pace. But you can see a dry line just starting to form the first sector as well, but the bridge section, which you can just see in the distance there that we've come through earlier in the lap, that was the last area of the track to dry. That actually didn't really dry throughout this entire session, but especially now, all of the track after the chicane, you can see that it is basically dry there and you can push, but you need to be very precise about your turn, and you can see that in this fast right, if you turn it just a little bit too early, you're going to dip wheel onto the wet stuff and you're going to go straight off. But you can see actually just how much this last sector has dried, even compared to the start of the session. So I think we were group 3 out of 6 of the day, and by sort of the time group 5 were out on track, we did all the practice and qualifying sessions first, that they were running in fully dry conditions, and in fact it was fully dry for all of the races as well. So that was enough to put us on pole position. You can see a yellow flag just come out, so we weren't going to improve on that lap. But as we can see, we're just about to get out underway for the formation lap. Now I've only actually started from pole position in one BUKC race. This is my 4th year of doing BUKC, and the only race I started pole in was in mains at Warden Law last year, but obviously those grid positions are predetermined, and that race did not go very well for me. I just dropped like a stone throughout the order, but learned from that, and obviously I've done a bit of Club 100 as well, so looking to draw on that experience for this race start. And I actually made sure to watch the previous 2 races before this to see what the leaders were doing and what I could learn. And what I noticed from the leaders is that both of them left it incredibly late to get underway, so that meant that they were on the back foot immediately going into turn number 1, and I think actually in the first race of the day the leader got spun round. So that was a nightmare scenario, so I didn't want that to happen. So my strategy for this race was to go as early as humanly possible. Obviously you have to stick behind this safety car, trying to get as much heat into the tyres as possible, and also the brakes as well. A lot of people neglect to do a bit of braking on their formation lap to get the brakes up to temperature. You don't want to be going into turn 1 not knowing what you've got. But safety car driver just putting their thumbs up in the air. I put the thumbs up as well, which obviously you can't see, just to let the other drivers know we're good to go. And now a little trick that I'm going to do here that I actually learned from Joe Holmes, one of the kart testers, and obviously does a bit of Club 100, is he sticks his hand up the kart, as I'm literally now doing exactly the same thing as what the marshal's doing, telling everyone to slow down. But actually my intention is to go as early as possible. So as soon as this gentleman in front of me steps off the track, I'm just going to floor it, and that's actually exactly when the lights change from red to green, so I get a perfect start, and I'm completely clear of P2 going into turns 1 and 2. I'm going to go slightly defensive into the bowl so that I don't just get absolutely sent up the inside, but it's been pretty much a dream start. Couldn't have wanted that to go any better. But we haven't actually had any running in the dry on this track so far today, so we are kind of having to, apart from the formation lap obviously, so we are kind of just having to learn how the track is, you know, just on the fly. We've done a few, I mean, I've come here in previous years when it's been dry, but obviously it's super tough, especially when you're the leader, to be the first one to go in, because you're the one who's deciding the braking zones. But I didn't know this at the time, but my teammates, they told me afterwards that even by this point I'd already stretched out sort of 4 or 5 kart lengths to the guys behind. And throughout the entire race, actually, I didn't look behind me once, because even though I was pretty certain by sort of the halfway point of the race that I had a gap to the guys behind, if I'd looked behind me and seen that there were still people behind me, that would have just been terrible for the mindsets and the confidence. So I just thought, you know, head down, look forwards, you go where you look, in a sense. So just keep pushing, and that's what I did throughout this race. First back marker already on lap number 6, and unfortunately it is our teammate Jay, because he had a pretty disastrous start. I think he just spun it on his own. It is his debut, and he actually had the 6th fastest lap in this race, so shout out to Jay. He did fight his way back up to sort of 25th out of 36 just after being last in lap 1, so still a very, very good effort, but I don't think he actually knows that it's us behind him. But we're going to can't afford to hang around, so we're just going to send it straight up the inside. Quite a good overtaking move that, because the natural line for that is to sort of open it up and get a late apex. So if you can just sort of slot it down the inside, then you can get it done. Onto another back marker. I think this is sort of the gentleman, unfortunately, who's last in terms of pure lap time, but we're able to get an easy cut back. It's almost as if he wasn't there, to be honest. But now moving on to lap 10, this is when we are going to start coming across our first group of back markers. Now, very, very important when you're overtaking your train, or even when you're the overtaking driver in any situation, is that you make the move cleanly. So my strategy was just to pick off these drivers one by one. Now, we've got the gentleman who we've just overtaken on the right. He's actually another lap down, so he's letting everyone through, which is good for him. We're tucked up behind the guy in the lead suit, and if we were really aggressive, we could send it up the inside of this fast right, but I knew that I was going to get the move done anyway, so no point risking it. Trying to get these moves done as calmly as possible. Last thing we want is to get a penalty, and actually we got quite a nice switchback actually on that gentleman in the black and yellow suit. And then we're behind this guy in the Zamp helmet and the white and purple suit. Quite a nice suit, but he obviously doesn't pay me back the compliment, as he just completely drives across me through turn 1, so that's not very nice of him, but I'm going to repay him by just absolutely sending it all the way around the outside of the bowl, and stealing that position off of him anyway, so unlucky, my friend. Gentleman in the red suit, we just hook up that right-hander a little bit better, and then we can sort of side draft a little bit down towards hairpin number 1. Nice and firm on those brakes, no need to be too aggressive, and we got through that group very nicely, all 4 of those drivers within a lap. And we're coming across another driver, and this is just going to show how much speed you can gain by taking that final corner correctly. Just a little lift, making sure you hook up that apex nice and precisely. And then moving on to lap number 12, we're coming across another pair of back markers. Very, very important that you don't interrupt these guys battling or don't ruin their race, but we're able to sweep past that guy without even trying, just by taking the racing line. And then we've got the gentleman here in the blue suit, has a little look over. I think he believes that this is for position, and you know, if he's fast enough, I'll work with him. But unfortunately, he just goes a little bit deep, and then I get the cut back anyway. So it was a very short but very precious partnership to me, and hopefully we can work together again in the future. End of the same lap. Again, we're going to get an absolutely monster slipstream here on this gentleman down into turns 1 and 2, completely flat in the dry. And then this is quite a risky move actually, because you need to have sort of faith that the other driver is going to see you, and in hindsight that was probably my weakest overtake of the day. He would have just completely turned across me if he hadn't noticed, so something to improve on there in terms of overtaking. But by this point of the race I was pretty certain that I had a good gap, but I was just trying to cruise along at this point, setting consistent lap times, continuing to build that gap. Once again, we're lapping this gentleman in the lime helmet for the 3rd time, I believe, but we're able to get him before the braking zone, move across, brake on the racing line. Happy days. 5 laps to go, and we're behind another guy here, trying to get a better run through that corner. I think we're going to try and get him into the hairpin 1 if we don't already get the cutback on him here. We were pretty strong through the bridge section all day, and then we're going to get another big slipstream down into turn number 1. we've already on the inside, so no need to sort of super outbrake ourselves. We get that move done nice and calmly. And we're going to immediately start pushing up onto this guy as well. Very, very important through this left-hander, the hairpin, that we try and keep the revs up as much as possible. This guy in the yellow and black suit has a little bit behind, but just makes a little bit of a mistake. Or not a mistake actually, just a little bit less speed. But I think he's going to make a little error through this corner. Yeah, just goes a little bit slightly wide, and we're going to immediately send it up the inside. Otherwise, we're probably going to be stuck behind him until the main straight. So quite a good overtaking move, that one. And we're going to move on to lap number 18 now, which was the fastest lap, not only of my race, but of the race in total. Fastest lap by about half a second. So we're going to run through this lap 18 at 1:10.3. Turns 1 and 2 completely flat in the dry, and then turns 3, 2 wheels on that huge curb. Try and open it up as much as possible. Don't need to nail the apex, but just try and carry as much speed as possible through. This left-hander, you want to stay to the left-hand side and then get 2 wheels on that concrete, which I didn't quite do, but I did hook up that right-hander quite nicely, staying off those CIK grade curves on the left-hand side, which are just going to slow you down in these karts. Brake in a straight line, I was not pushing as hard as I would do if this was, for example, a qualifying session, because I knew by this point that I had a good gap. So 1:10.3 was put me as the second fastest driver of the entire day, which I was satisfied with, but I wasn't completely surprised by, because this is my 4th year now of doing BUKC, and I've done quite a few mains races. Led a mains race at Buckmore actually last year as well, so you'd think I'd probably be towards the front, but the top guys in mains actually in the dry the day before were doing sort of low 1 minute 9, so still just goes to show how much more time there is in the pocket. But I did hook up that last sector quite nicely and cross the line for the fastest lap of the race of a 1:10.3. So very, very happy to get the Grand Slam in this race. Pole position, fastest lap, led every lap, race win. And we're just going to pick off the last few back markers now into the last few corners. This was quite a tricky section of the track if you got caught behind someone, and I knew I was going to catch him through this final corner, so just lifted a bit more than I would normally do. Allows me to carry a bit more speed onto the main straight. Luckily this guy's having a little look over his shoulder and he sees us and he yields the position, so good stuff. I overheard a few people in my race afterwards, especially the guys towards the front, saying that the back markers weren't particularly courteous, but I thought they were pretty good for the most part, so well done to all these drivers. I know a lot of these drivers this would have been their first proper race in the BUKC as well, except for qualifiers, so well done to all these drivers. This gentleman actually in the white helmet, red and white suit, was I was stuck behind him for about a lap. The lap that I was behind him, he drove very well, but he just goes a little bit wide there, and we do our favourite move of just slinging it up the inside, going into the final sector of the lap. But now we're on the final lap, and I didn't actually think we were going to catch anyone else, but we do actually close up onto the back of this group, but we won't need to overtake any of them as the race is just finishing. And even though it is Inters, I have been racing in BUKC for 3.5 years, and this was my first race win, so as you can see by these photos, I was very happy and gesturing to my team, very, very happy to secure the win. So yeah, a fun day at BUKC Inters at PFI, but definitely looking forward to getting back in the mains team for Buckmore Park, which is well, not round number 2, but event number 2 in mains at the start of March. Well, that's everything for today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll be back with some more racing content very, very soon after we've had that Christmas break. So please keep an eye out for that. And thank you all so much for your support on the previous videos, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Take care of yourself. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye bye.